moving on to the next segment of today's inauguration, I would like to make a brief introduction about our next speaker. He is a professor of accounting at Adam Smith Business School, University of Glasgow, UK, and leads the accounting research cluster therein. Before he joined the University of Glasgow, he was a professor of accounting and the director of postgraduate research at the University of Aberdeen Business School, UK. He has over 20 years of teaching experience in a broad spectrum of subjects, including strategic management accounting, accounting theory, sustainability accounting, research methodologies and philosophies, and affiliated subjects such as economics and management. He has published widely in leading accounting journals, including Accounting Organizations and Society, Critical Perspectives on Accounting and Accounting, Auditing and Accountability Journal, and he regularly reviews papers for leading accounting journals and is on the editorial boards of several accounting journals. His research interests include, inter alia, critical analysis of governance, control, accountability, and sustainability issues, especially in less developed country contexts. Dear sir, we are honored to have you with us today. Please welcome our keynote speaker, Professor Chandana Alwattage, to share your insights with us.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me for this wonderful occasion. And I hope you can hear me, and I hope that you can see me. So can you please, one of you, confirm me that you can hear and see me?
We can hear.
That's good. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And it's a really proud moment and a wonderful time to see my old colleagues, and especially those people I would consider as my sirs. For example, Vikramaraj sir, Mangala sir, I saw the name somewhere there, and then Kennedy sir, Atula sir, and everybody, and also my colleagues like Nimal, Samanthi, Harendra, Sanjeevani, and forgive me if I forget any of you. So I used to work in the Department of Accounting since 1990, as I remember, 1995 or 4 to 2002 or 3, something like that, in research for public interest. So my topic today is accounting research for public interest. And I hope this is a very timely and a useful discussion we can have. And when I'm doing this presentation, if you have any questions, you can ask them. So I will keep my chat box on. Oh, sorry. I'm trying to get my chat box on somewhere here. Yep. So that I can see the chat box by the side. Okay. So that's my topic today. So accounting research for public interest. So if you have any accounting research for public interest. So if you have any questions, feel free to put it in the chat box. So I will try to keep an eye on that. Okay. So am I moving it? Yeah. Okay. So aims. So what I'm trying to do today is to provide a very broad understanding of accounting research and to appreciate its diversity. I'm trying to do it within a very short period, for example, roughly around 35 minutes, leaving you enough time to ask some questions at the end, because I like discussions, debate and dialogue rather than, trying to deliver a lecture, which I have to do in a way. And secondly, there's a spelling mistake for that one. So please forgive me. To provide, not to prove. Okay. To provide an understanding of the career opportunities in accounting research. Okay. So I will talk about what kind of careers you can pursue when you do accounting research. And also, we are trying to understand and appreciate the socio-political role of accounting and accounting research beyond the maximizing shareholders' wealth. So yes, we know, we always understand that accounting is there to maximize shareholders' wealth. And as we know, as accounting researchers, accounting do have a much broader political role, much important, critical, cultural, political role. So we are trying to understand and appreciate that broader political role. It is not simply a technical pursuit. It is not simply what we call a technical profession. It is much bigger than that. It is much broader than that. So that will bring me to a statement, wonderful statement, provided by one of the world-renowned philosopher and educationist, John Stuart Mill. And he provided this particular statement when he, in his inaugural speech of the St. Andrews University. When the St. Andrews University was started in 1867, so not university, some kind of a program in the St. Andrews University. When they started a certain program in the St. Andrews University, John Stuart Mill provided that particular statement. So he says, what professional men should carry away with them from a university is not only, the word only is mine, professional knowledge, but also, the word also is mine, that which should direct the use of their professional knowledge and bring the light of general culture to eliminate the technicalities of a special pursuit. So basically what he tried to say is, a professional is not simply a technical expert, it is more than that. A professional should be able to use or deploy his or her professional understanding, skills, knowledge and attitudes for a broader cultural, political, economic and a national or a global benefit. So that's what the professionalism basically means. That's why we have code of conducts and ethics and broader spectrum of subjects to be covered. So that's what my aims are going to be. That's what I'm trying to cover today. And then I will start this discussion asking a very fundamental, very basic question. What is research? And why do we need it? So this question can be answered in so many different ways. I agree. There are so many differences in the way we do researches. And there are so many differences in the way we use research. And there are so many different uses, benefits, as well as dangers of doing research. But for the purpose of this discussion, I would define it, I would explain it as a logical process of constructing, reconstructing, or deconstructing knowledge. So we construct knowledge, we reconstruct the existing knowledge, and we deconstruct it. Sometimes the knowledge becomes outdated, knowledge becomes dangerous, a particular form of knowledge can become dangerous, and in which case we have to deconstruct it. So it is an ongoing process and a logical process. Something to do with knowledge. Okay? Or in a very somewhat narrow, that doesn't mean useless, that doesn't mean bad, but a somewhat narrow scope of research you can also call research is the application of knowledge. Sometimes already existing knowledge could be applied in a particular form, in a derived form, that could also involve research. And so either way, it is about knowledge. So when I'm thinking about the knowledge, what I mean by knowledge at this particular condition or in this particular time, yet again, you can argue, what do you mean by knowledge? Knowledge is a very complex concept. Knowledge is a very difficult concept to explain. And there are lots of debates about what do you exactly mean by knowledge. But for the purpose of this discussion, I would say knowledge is what is accepted as or acceptable understanding of the reality. So it is about what is real, what is the reality, what's happening, what happened, what is going to happen. Something like that. So it is a kind of an acceptable understanding of reality and accepted as acceptable. So research is a process through which we establish this acceptance of knowledge. The knowledge becomes some acceptable condition because of the research. So that's what I mean by connection between the research and the knowledge. And research is very important because why? Research is important to maintain the peace and order and the social progress, as well as, very importantly, most importantly, avoiding individual and collective harm. A good set of research, good understanding, good insight about the realities is very important to avoid individual and collective harm. So there are many things that the research brings out. Peace, order, social progress, and avoiding harm. Okay? And whatever the form it takes, research is always political. That's a very important thing that we have to understand. Some researchers might come out and say, we are apolitical. We are not political. We are neutral researchers. Now, whatever the form you would do, it will be political. The statement that I am not political is a political statement. I am neutral is a political statement. Because one way or the other, any research will either support the reproduction, maintenance of a particular political order or challenge it. So therefore, whatever the form you do it, that will be the case. For example, even the invention of penicillin by Marie Curie is political because it created a new social order. It creates a new political order with the hospitals and all those things. And it challenges old wisdom of knowledge and old wisdom of witchcraft and other conditions. So it challenges the way the people think, the way the people behave, the way the people use their powers. So therefore, any form of research is political. So that's the one thing that I have to emphasize at the very, very beginning. Okay? And then, varieties of accounting research. Research can take many forms, and you can classify research into various ways. And again, the classification of research is debatable. People can classify research in so many different ways, not exactly in this way. So there is a research classification that I carried out for this particular purpose here, for this particular discussion here. Okay, so thinking about the people I am talking today, thinking about the conditions we are in, so I divided the research into two broader categories. One I call academic research, the other one is I call professional research or industrial research. Okay? And when I think about the academic research can be mainstream accounting research or critical accounting research. So I'm talking about accounting research here. So if you are talking about management research, still you can say mainstream management research and the critical management research. Okay, and when I'm thinking about the professional research, there can be many kind of professional research. And I give some examples here. For example, management consultancy is a form of research. And then the action research. There are forms of research which we call action research. So action research is the type of research that people like Kaplan, Robert S. Kaplan, Milton Friedman and other people do, because they are in the policy forums, they are in the consultancy, they are working with the companies. Okay, so they are working with the companies, and while working as consultants, while working as trainers, while working as managers, they might do certain research, which we call action research. Okay, so this notion of action research was populated especially by the Harvard Business School and some other North American universities. That is because in these North American universities like Harvard, there are professors, their main job, this action research is not very popular in Europe. It is not very popular in UK or France or say in a European context. But in American context, Canadian context, this action research is quite powerful thing. That is because in those universities like Harvard, the professors are occupied or professors are belonging to a university. They are university professors. While in the university, their major job, their main income source, the job that they consider as their primary job is a consultancy. So they work to a consultancy firm as well. They work with the companies as consultants. But they have a problem here. That is, when they work in the university, they have to do research. If they don't do the research in the American or a Canadian or a European universities, your job is in a bit of a trouble. You won't get promotions. You might get even sacked. Because you have to show your research. Because university professors are supposed to do research. University lecturers are supposed to do research. That is their primary job in a university like Western universities. But these professors are spending a lot of time, not in the university, but outside, earning some money for the university on the basis of consultancy and training and so on, and earning a lot of money for themselves. So they have a problem justifying the existence to the university protocols. So university HR department will have a problem with that. Therefore, what they do is, out of their consultancy, out of their training programs, out of their contract with the companies, they bring out some papers. They are called action research. They are very useful. They are very good research. I don't say they are bad research, no. For example, this kind of research will bring out what we call how to do type of knowledge or know-how. They bring out know-how. So that's very important. For example, balanced scorecard, activity-based costing, enterprise resource planning systems, and all those things are coming out because of this kind of action research. And then also they carry out what we call pedagogical case studies. Example, Harvard case studies. These case studies are written to simulate the corporate situations in the classrooms. So they go and work in a company, and that company experience is written into a case study and used in their teaching classroom, in the executive MBAs, and various other educational programs. That's what we call professional research. And I will talk mainly in my discussion, I will be concentrating mainly on academic research because I am an academic. I do very little being in a university, Glasgow University, which is a very liberal, high research intensive university. So I am an academic researcher. So therefore I will be talking much about academic research and very less about professional research. Okay. And then in between, I can also see there is an in-between category, so which is a combination of academic research and professional research, which we call policy research, and which is quite popular in economics and sociology, social policy, and that sort of areas. It is partly academic, partly professional. And it has a certain very good academic qualities, as well as it is directed toward policy formulation, especially for the government, NGOs, charities, and that policy thinkers or think tankers, and so on. So this is a kind of a classification about my research. Okay, and I have a question here, but I will come to that one. It's a bit of a long question here. And then, if I compare academic research with the professional research, all this blue-colored side is academic research, and the red or colored side is the professional research. So the academic research is aimed at identifying, exploring, or testing the underlying structures, processes, systems, and discourses that underlie the reproduction of realities. So in academic research, we ask some kind of broader questions, how and why a particular condition is reproduced. For example, in the current condition of Sri Lanka, you can ask why and how Sri Lanka came into this current situation? What is the accounting answer for that? Or is there an accountability problem here? Okay. Is there a collapse of accounting and accountability in this particular situation? What is the role that accounting didn't play here, or should have played here, or failed to play here in this particular condition? So by doing that, we try to understand the underlying structures. So we believe that there should be some structures or processes, systems, discourses, or particular histories that created the reality as such. So this is the reality we are in. Why and how? How we came to that particular condition. So that's what the academic research normally tries to do. Okay? So either they identify, explore, or test. So this could be through, identifying the causalities between variables and understanding whether the market is perfect, okay? Whether the market is imperfect, whether the market is a random walk condition. Okay? So the market has underlying structure. Market has an underlying condition that create a particular behavior from the consumers, producers, and so on. So that's what the academic research would do. Accounting, economics, management, whatever it is, that's what we are trying to do. And academic research try to construct, reconstruct, or deconstruct higher order knowledge that help to theorize the social realities. And it provides a broader structural understanding, discursive understanding, historical understanding, so that we can explain. Theorize means explain in a logical sense with a set of concepts, principles, theories. Okay? Why certain things are happening in a certain way. For example, agency theory explanations, transaction cost theory explanations, Marxist explanations, Foucauldian explanations, institutional theory explanations. So we explain things. Why this is happening in this manner? That's because of this. There's a theoretical reasoning behind this. So that's what the academic research tries to do. And it is driven by what we call a citizenship model of responsibility and accountability. So when we are doing academic research, we are responsible and we are accountable, not to an individual, but the public at large, the population at large, the nation, citizens, the global citizenship. We are responsible for the citizens of a globe, of a world, of a country, of a nation, of a community, doesn't matter. Okay? So it's a citizenship model. And we are not funded by private money to help some private interest. We are funded by public money for public interest. The universities are there, everywhere, running out of public money to serve public interest. So that's what the academic research is about. And on the other hand, professional research, that doesn't mean professional research is bad, okay? So this is the way the professional research is carried out. And it has a different world. It is a different condition. So the professional research aims at solving specific problems experienced by a specific set of people or at a specific locality. In a particular organization, in a particular department, or in a particular, say, corporation, or a community. So they have a specific problem. And we go and talk to them and to get together with them, do a consultancy, training, or whatever it is. We try to answer that specific problem. And it is more of application of knowledge rather than construction, deconstruction, and like that. So this is like a doctor, a GP. So you go and diagnose the problems, talk to the people, diagnose the problem, and then decide what sort of established knowledge can be used here. What sort of a medicine I can use here. For example, would the application of activity-based costing would help this particular problem? Because that will cost the products better than the traditional absorption costing. Or would the balance scorecard would help here to control and evaluate the performance of the people, because that will create a multidimensional performance management framework. And GRI, Global Reporting Initiatives. Okay? So can we use the Global Reporting Initiative protocols or standards to frame our sustainability reporting? So that is the application of particular knowledge. So it could be levers of control, Boston Consultancy Group, SWOT analysis, 5 forces model. So all these models you learn, accounting standards, for example. No? So those are what you call a professional research. Okay? You are thinking about the manner in which a particular already established framework of knowledge can be applied to solve a particular problem faced by a particular set of people in a given locality. So that's professional research. And they have a very direct application. Whereas the academic research has a very indirect, broad usefulness and driven by a client or a market model of responsibility and accountability. So you are using the private money. So you are responsible and accountable for your client. Okay, so funded by private money for private interest. So that's the difference. Okay. So these are two kinds of research, academic research versus professional research. So being an accountant, you might end up either academic field or a professional field. So in either way, the research would be very, very useful. That's why your lecturers or your department ask you to do a dissertation. Okay? It doesn't matter. Okay? Whether you are in a professional field or whether you are going to be academic, still the research is important. Okay? So still you should be able to read, understand, analyze the problems, get the questions and all those things. Okay. So this is the difference between academic and professional research as I understand it. You might have another criteria. People can have different criteria to differentiate between these three. But for the time being, I thought last night, oh, this could be the way I can differentiate. Okay. So I just prepared the slides last night, even though I had the idea of what I'm talking about. Yeah. And then, so I will talk a bit more about accounting because my topic is public interest. Accounting research for public interest. Yeah. So in that sense, I would say accountancy originally evolved for public interest. I know that. People will talk about shareholders maximization, wealth maximization, and all those things in the textbooks. Okay? Even the textbooks I wrote, often I mention that shareholders maximization is a primary objective of accounting. So then when I was thinking very carefully about history of accounting, when I went back to various documents that talk about charterization of accounting, so I realized no. Accounting evolved for the public interest. And accountants are a set of professionals. They are to serve the public interest. It is not the private interest. And that's why we call them chartered accountants. That's why they call them in America certified public accountants. A charter is given by the king. That is to serve the realm, serve the nation, serve the kingdom. Not the shareholders. Because the king did not really trust the accounts given by various rich people, okay, aristocracy, okay, the aristocracy and the rich people and the new class of bourgeois class, factory owners, those good old days, okay, they say to the king, oh, my wealth is this much, my income is this much. And the king doesn't believe it. The king wanted somebody to check it. Because the government, the kingdom, the nation want income tax purposes and other purposes. Okay? So the accountants were chartered so that these accountants can tell to the government or the public or the king that the information provided by these rich people are true and fair. Is it acceptable? So it is serving not the shareholders' view. And for that, the shareholder should pay it. So the laws are passed, commands are given to the shareholders, to the rich people. If you are going to give me accounts, you have to pay and you have to hire a person to certify your account. Otherwise, I don't accept it. You have to pay that. It's like, for example, when I'm applying for a visa, if I'm applying for a passport or something, okay, and suppose I have a birth certificate which is written in Sinhalese, but the British government doesn't accept Sinhalese. So the British government commands me, you go and recruit a certified translator. I have to pay for a certified translator, get my birth certificate translated into English, and have a stamp on that to prove that this translation is done by a certified translator. So the certified translator, I am using a certified translator. Why? Is it for me? No. Is it for the British government? But I have to pay for that. The British government never pays for that because it is a government. So that's where. Now, when it comes to the USA is got the independence from the Britain, and it is anti-British at that time. They don't want to call their accountants, serving the king. They don't want to call them the chartered. They call it what? You are serving the public because they don't have a king or queen. Okay. So in UK, we call Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. Still we call Inland Revenue Department as Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs because we have a queen or a king later on. But in those countries like Australia, New Zealand, US, they don't have a king or queen, so you can't call it chartered, and they are anti-royal. They are anti-royal nations, at least in their independence. So they called it public. So by definition, by nature, accounting is a profession originally established, evolved to serve the realm, nation, or the public, not the shareholders. Okay? Though the shareholder has a contract, though you write your report to the shareholder and then the shareholder occupies you because the law asks you to do that. A company asks you to do that. Okay? And this was an institutional evolution of modernity. It is a part of the modern democratic state. It is the bureaucracy. It is the quasi-state bureaucracy. It is the transition of knowledge knowledge and the power from the sovereign to the public. So when you are talking about the public or a modern democratic state or a capitalistic state, the king and the queen only become nominal. They don't govern us. They are just there. It's like, a nominal presidency, good old days. I say, frankly, good old days. Okay? A nominal presidency. So like that, we have a queen, a nominal queen. The queen never governs us, but the bureaucratic, democratic parliament governs us, especially the common, not the, lords, not the lords, but the commons governs us. That is a democracy. So it is a movement of the power from the sovereign power to the public. So we are to serve the public. And it is a part of the bureaucracy. Even though you are not directly occupied, employed by the government, okay, you are all the public, the accountants are public employees. Clear? Especially what I call chartered accountants, having accounting firms and so on, okay? As such, accountancy was a critical element of the evolution of modern democratic state, vis-a-vis non-modern sovereign state where aristocracy. So remember, the modern state means a state with the bureaucracy. Before that, what we had was aristocracy. And I know that, Harvard Business School people and various other people keep on criticizing and damning the bureaucracy. But a bureaucracy is a very progressive, wonderful thing when you compare that with the aristocracy. The bureaucracy is the fundamental basis of democracy. The bureaucracy is the point at which the democracy is exercised at the point of work. At work, in the workplace. Otherwise, if my father is a carpenter, I am a carpenter. If my father is a drummer, I am a drummer. If I belong to that caste, then I am doing the work of that particular caste. Even here, if I am part of that particular guild, I am doing that guild work. That is aristocracy. Okay, if my father is a king, or I will become a prince or a king later on, or a duke or somebody. So that is destroyed, or that is reformulated into new form. That is a bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is a kind of hierarchy. Even a very lower caste, lower level, poor person can join this bureaucracy, show their performance, meet the qualifications, meet the promotional criteria. You can climb the social ladder. You can one day become a big guy, irrespective of where you were born. The heritage doesn't matter. That's the bureaucracy. Okay? But unfortunately, I see in various writing, especially the American writing, so-called Harvard writing, they are talking about, this bureaucracy has to be destroyed. Instead, you have to bring in other systems. Clear? Where? And they talk about guanxi. They talk about connections, social capital. What? Why do I have to have a personal connection, friendship, or a kinship, family connections to get a job? Why should I? In a democratic world, why should we appreciate those things like, the guanxi, so-called connections, okay, so-called social capital as a good thing? I can't. I don't. Yes, I used to appreciate that reading all these, materials. Then I was thinking, what are we doing here? No, I don't want it. Instead, we want a society, we want a world like a UK here. It doesn't matter who I am. What matters is what I do, what I produce, what kind of research I carry out. Then I get the promotion. If I don't do, that's that. Clear? So the people should be promoted, given the opportunities. The power should be distributed. The privileges should be distributed only on the basis of merit. Only on the basis of merit. That's what you call bureaucracy. That's what you call meritocracy. A good bureaucracy works upon what you call meritocracy, nothing else. Okay, so that's accountancy is a part of it. Accountancy is a part of it. Okay? Yeah, and then happened what you call unfortunate turn from public to private. Since 1950s, especially after Second World War, with the emergence of neoliberalism and the power of Chicago School of Economics, and especially people like Milton Friedman, who got the Nobel Prize for telling the ultimate purpose of a company is to maximize shareholders' wealth. Just because of telling that in a different way, in a complex manner, he got a Nobel Prize. Okay, Milton Friedman. Okay, and then that is what happened since 1950s, 60s. Okay, and that's the neoliberal economics. Neoliberal politics, Milton Friedman, Chicago School of Economics, Harvard Business School, and all those guys started to capture this accounting profession. And then came out what you call the accounting standardization project. And the people from the London School of Economics and people from the Chicago School of Economics and all those people who got economics degrees became chartered accountants, and they came to the high level of chartered accountancy professional bodies, and then they started to write accounting standards, conceptual frameworks, and so on. And they were framed by neoclassical economic thinking. They started to think about their profession not from the accounting angle or accountancy angle, but from an economic angle. So the economics captured accountancy. And remember that accountancy was there before the invention of economics. Economics came later. Accountancy had a much prouder, longer history than economics. Economics is only a Victorian invention. Okay, before that we didn't have economy. The concept of economy, concept of population, they only came into being not that long. And they became very popular, especially during and after Second World War and the First World War at that time. Okay? So therefore what happened? Economics captured the noble, wonderful, public interest profession of accounting. or accountancy. Okay? And then they started to write the textbooks. And people like me also carried out until recently this particular tradition of thinking about accountancy from economic angle. Until I started to read the accounting history. Oh gosh, then I realized why, what we have done. Okay? And the misconceived economic notion of agency, stewardship, then came into understand. To create the political discourse that accountancy is to serve the shareholders rather than the public interest. So they brought out, various economic concepts like agency theory, transaction cost theory, like people like Coase, who wrote the transaction cost theory originally in 1930s, and the Williamson, Chandler, okay, and even Michael Port and all those guys started to write about accountancy, management, and so on, using this agency theory framework. Forgetting about the role of the government, forgetting about the contract with the public, forgetting about what we call public contract. And this populated into the textbooks. And they got into the textbooks and captured it. So basically, economics captured the accounting. Okay? So implied in this conception is the idea that accountability should be asked based on the notion of ownership rather than the stake. So we thought what? Accountants is there to serve the owners. And we forget the notion of stake. Yes, we understand corporations might be owned by shareholders. But still the corporation should account for me because why? You do have a stake on me. Whatever you do will destroy my life or make my life happy or better. So you have a stake on me. As far as you have a stake on us, you are accountable to us, responsible to us. Because why? We are citizens. In a democratic society, we the citizens are the most powerful. You should account to us. We are the phenomena. We are the thing. The citizens replace the king. Okay? Not the shareholders. See, in a democratic society, citizens are more powerful than the shareholders or anybody else should be. Okay? That's the condition in Western developed world. They still consider the citizens as the primary condition. And accounting doesn't. Still accounting doesn't. Okay? And the stake and the political authority and the legitimacy is very critical. It is more powerful and more important than so-called shareholdership or ownership. Okay? That's what we mean by democratic social order. So in that sense, so my argument here is that accounting is a public profession. Accounting is to serve the public. Yes, we know how we all are being taught by all leading scholars in this world until now. Yeah. And however, now we see a good trajectory. During the last 20, 30 years time, and now it is growing, we have a trajectory now. Now people are thinking about this in a different manner. Okay? Still the accounting profession and education is suffering from this neoliberal economic capture. I understand that. But there is an emerging trend and a recognized necessity of going beyond the so-called primary user. Even the accounting standard setters are now struggling. I went to a couple of their discussions. When I was in Aberdeen, there was what you call early morning breakfast discussions by the ICAS, Institute of Chartered Accountants of Scotland. So as accounting professor, I was being invited to those things, as an outsider. So I go in early morning. I have to go there at 7 o'clock while these big corporate managers, all these professional people comes and having the breakfast in a good, wonderful hotel, talk about these things in a very, very free manner, without much agenda. Okay? So they are talking about how they can enhance the idea of primary user, how they can bring the accounting back to this public interest. Yeah, in this Western world, now the accounting profession is struggling to do that. They are trying to do that. Okay? They have intentions of doing that now because they are now understanding it's very important if we want to keep this world a better place. Okay, and this necessity has been reinforced and signified by the global sustainability discourses. Sustainability discourses, UN SDGs, reinforce that. Now the corporations, nations has to meet sustainability development goals. So that demands the accountants think about beyond the profit. Think about beyond the shareholders' value maximization. Okay, so the professional institutions are still lagging. For example, if you look at ICAS, ACCA, ICAEW, all those syllabuses, curriculums, they're still lagging behind. But the liberal universities in Europe, especially in Europe, are doing quite a lot of things. For example, if you think about the Glasgow University here, we have a lot of courses, accounting courses to deal with these things. For example, in honors level, we have accounting for human rights, one course, accounting for carbon emissions, another course, and accounting for modern slavery and that sort of things, social and environmental accounting. So we have that kind of courses. They're not compulsory courses, they are optional courses, but still students are given the opportunity to study them. Accounting, organization and society, accounting theory, and so-called courses. We have made quite a significant improvement in the university curriculums. But I understand the professional bodies find very difficult because they are professional bodies. They have a specific remit within which they can make decisions. They are not as free as us. They don't have much freedom, academic freedom, that we enjoy as lecturers in the universities here. So therefore, it is a very difficult thing for the professional institutions to do that, but still they are trying it. They try their best. But they want our help. I understand that. Okay? So they try to do that. And then, when I think about this public interest, for this public interest can be captured nowadays, there are three overarching themes that brought the public interest back into accounting research. First one I call sustainability, second theme I call accountability, and the third theme I call strategy. So these three themes bring the public interest back to the agenda. Okay, so when I think about the sustainability, this is what I feel. How do we make sure that economic efficiencies are resulted in ecological justice and socio-political justice? And if you are thinking about it in accounting terms, and to what extent we have achieved these conditions. Okay, it is not simply the economic efficiency, but whether our economic efficiencies, whether the profit that we make, whether the big, huge, large corporations we create, ultimately results in ecological justice and socio-political justice. If the money, if the economic efficiencies cannot bring out ecological justices and socio-political justices, that economic efficiency is useless. It cannot be justified. Any profit cannot be justified because there's no justice there. Okay? If that profit cannot bring ecological justice and socio-political justice. Why do we want money? Why people have to earn money? Money is not the end. Profit is not the end. The profit should bring something back. The people like Adam Smith thought so. They thought that the profit will bring better things. Yes, that profit can and profit should. If it is not doing that, forget it. Somebody should become rich, but his richness or his or her richness should help the world. Otherwise, he or she would be damned by the others. Okay? And a rich person will not be able to live in a society or a village if that rich person wouldn't help the village or that society. And that society and that village will fight against him. Because the richness destroys me rather than helps me. Okay? So people can become rich and should become rich as far as that richness will become or results in ecological justice and socio-political justice. Otherwise, that's a problem. That's what I mean personally. Reading everything, I say, all right, no, that's ultimately, if that doesn't happen, that is not sustainable. It is not going to be sustainable. Any social order is not going to be sustainable in that way, if it doesn't have ecological justice and the socio-political justice. And that accountability means, how do we make sure that the necessary visibility and the transparency and the knowledge and the insight of our activities are provided for governance and control purposes. Everybody should be governed. Everybody should be controlled. Everybody should be kept to operate within a framework. Otherwise, it's a disaster. It is the chaos. It is anarchy. But nobody should be governed. Nobody should be ruled by another person. I should not be ruled by another person. Okay? Not an individual should govern me. One person should not govern another person. Instead, a system should govern everybody. A rule should govern everybody. A philosophy should govern everybody. Okay? So when I go to see a doctor asks me to get naked. I get naked. Why? Doctor asks me. So how this doctor gets that power? Because the doctor follows the medical rule. And doctor can ask that in a particular manner, in a given condition. He or she can't ask me to get naked in a private place. No. In a surgery. In front of nurses. So somebody like that, following the rules. That's fine. Otherwise not. It is not simply the doctor asks me to get naked. It is the medical profession asks me to get naked. It is not the doctor that governs me, but the medical profession that governs me. That is the knowledge that the doctor carries. That's a very important thing. In a democratic society, modern society, nobody should govern anybody. But everybody should be governed by a well-accepted, generally accepted, democratically accepted system of governance, rules and a law. That's what lacks in Sri Lanka. That's what you call accountability. Knowledge, insights and the visibility, transparency to help us govern and be controlled. And the strategy? How do we make sure that our economic activities are carried out within the limits, boundaries and expectations of the economic, polity, society, ecology and the nature? So that's what we mean by strategy. Okay? How do we carry out our economic activities so that we never cross the boundaries? We follow the expectations and the boundaries of the economy, polity, society, ecology and the nature. They are contradictory forces. Therefore, each of them should control us. That's what I meant by thinking about the public interest. So when we think about the public interest, these three concepts are very, very important. Sustainability, accountability and the strategy. Okay? And then we all know everywhere now, especially in Sri Lanka and many other places in the world, we are in a crisis, what we call neoliberal crisis. Okay, there is a problem of accounting and accountability. And this neoliberalization happened in 4 ways. The contemporary world order, now we are seeing, is happened because of these 4 critical dynamics. One is the neoliberalization of politics. The state ideology was changed. Okay, state ideology, political ideology was changed. That's called neoliberalization. Either for good or bad. I don't say it is a bad necessarily. So that's the change. And there was what you call globalization of markets and hierarchies. Global brands, global consumers, global firms, global supply chains, global regulations, and all those things. That's what we call globalization of markets and hierarchies. So globalized, what do you globalize? Markets and hierarchies. And then the digitalization of technologies and virtualization of spaces. So these are the 4 key dynamics that I would understand which changed the world during the last 30-40 years. Okay? And fortunately as well as unfortunately, these neoliberal digitalization, virtualization and globalization created 2 things simultaneously. One I call the productive flows, the other one is I call corruptive flows. So it created a productive flow. And at the same time, they created what I call a corruptive flow, or overcurrent and undercurrent. Okay, so that's the problem here. And accordingly, so these are some examples of the productive flow and the corruptive flow. Okay, now for example, think about, so you can think about many other examples. Now, these are few examples came into my mind. Expansion of global production. That's a wonderful thing. We are consuming things that we never dream of, like iPad and that and these wonderful things we are producing now. And because of this global production, expansion of global production, at the same time, there's a geopolitical concentration of productive power, especially in the hand of China. Yeah, there's a global production of which a large majority is done by Chinese. It creates big, huge problems in the global geopolitical order. And Russia. So that's a good thing happening. And because of the same good thing, what is happening? There's a danger happening. An enhanced flow of goods and services across national borders. We can bring everything here and there. And then you can go to the various shops in Sri Lanka and buy the Nike shoes. But are you really buying a Nike shoe? Or something else? Is it a fake product? Illegal product? Dangerous goods? Okay? And sometimes you might buy some product, what you call medicines, online. Is it really a medicine? You don't know. So that's what we call high flow of fake, illegal and dangerous goods. And similarly, labor moving across national borders and better employment conditions. At the same time, you see what? Human trafficking, modern slavery, very harsh working conditions. They are also happening. Think about the Bangladeshi garment industry. It's a terrible place to work. And then you have free flow of capital and money across national borders. And you have money laundering. And all other corruptive financial flows. They corrupt. Okay? An expansion of global production and distribution. And then you have carbon emission. And environmental degradation. And extensive use of land. And you have what? Collapse in ecological systems and biodiversity. So like that, you can think about all these things. And you can think about, for example, rich becoming richer. And we talk about all rich people. Like Bill Gates and others. We dream of becoming such. And millions and billions are becoming poorer. Poor becoming poorer. Okay, so these are what you call productive flows and the corruptive flows. These are happening more or less everywhere. In some places, these are happening very dangerously. And what happens? When this counterflow or corruptive flow gets bigger than the productive flow, you are in a crisis. Classical example of Sri Lanka. The bottom becomes bigger. The underflow becomes bigger. The corruptive flow becomes bigger. And it gets normalized. It gets normalized. Okay? And everybody becomes a part of this corruptive flow. When everybody becomes a part of this corruptive flow, because they don't have escape. They don't have escape. That is so powerful. They comes and captures you. Okay? And then you are in trouble. So that's where the accountability, governance, and everything is very important. Because that's how you can identify the public interest issues in accountability. So these are accountability issues. The accounting issues. That's why major accounting journals now publish accounting for carbon emissions, accounting for human trafficking, modern slavery. So I have a paper under review in CPA with a Bangladeshi colleague talking about the modern slavery in garment sector in Bangladesh. Okay, so those are accounting issues, accountability issues, labor control issues, and so on. Very wonderful research issues. Okay, so that's what is happening. This is a global phenomena, and in some local places, this becomes unbelievably, terribly dangerous. Okay, and understanding the accounting problem. In the contemporary accounting problem needs to be located within these wider social categories. Okay, so for me, there are four key structural conditions or the realms that has to interconnected while keeping the interdependencies, and they have to be independent in a sense. So their independencies has to be maintained with an interdependent condition. So these are the polity, economy, society, and ecology. So there should be a good polity. Okay, so the accountancy is a part of this polity as well. Okay, and it is a part of the economy as well. So the accountancy should understand its role that they have to play in the polity for the public interest. Okay, so for example, polity means a very solid, stable, and sovereign government and sovereign citizenship. Okay, and then the economy means efficient market, efficient hierarchies, and efficient labor processes. And that can happen when you have well-regulated ethical form of markets, professional corporate hierarchies, very professional, wonderful corporate hierarchies, and well-disciplined bourgeois class. A capitalistic class with a very good ethics. That's what we lost during the last 30-40 years' time. Okay? The old-fashioned, good, ethical bourgeois class, rich class is lost in the country. Instead, we ended up with what? I don't know, highly corrupted, rich class. Okay? And equally, we need to have a well-trained, well-organized, through the trade unionism and other things, a well-organized, trained working class. So working class people have their own ethics. So they appreciate, they like to be a working class guy. Okay? Good old days, no? Our fathers never worried about being carpenters. They loved it. Okay? And then ecology. So we have to identify the solidity of the nature. So we have to think about ecology and the nature. Nature can be understood in different way. Nature can be considered as a natural order or can be considered as a divine order given by the God if you are religious. If you are religious, you might think nature is the divine order. If you are non-religious, you think about it's a natural order. But still, that is the order that keeps everything in order. So you have to follow the limits, rules given by that ecological order. And the society should be what you call with a social solidarity. That's the two words, solidarity versus solidity. Solidity of the ecology or the nature and the solidarity of the society. And the sovereignty of the polity and the efficiency of the market, economy. So those are the key words. Okay? So when you have to combine them, so you combine them as through what? Citizenship as governance and regulation. So ultimately, what governs a society? What governs a nation? What avoid the collective harm is a proper citizenship constructed on the basis of these four key elements. Are a citizen who is very responsible, accountable towards the polity, economy, ecology, and society. What governs is the citizenship. That's what we lost. The country during the last 30-40 years lost the notion of citizenship. And the countries like UK, we still govern it here. Now we consider ourselves as citizens. Okay? And countries can go bankrupt. And the life can be miserable when their accountability apparatuses are misplaced and destroyed. There are all these elements do have what you call accountability apparatuses. And if you misplace them, if you destroy them, it is not a surprise that the country go bankrupt. Okay, for example, think about. In a good democratic governable society, there are what I call in Sinhalese, Pati Putu. There's a part of the government bureaucracy, what I call Pati Putu. Viganaka Adipati, Mahabankwe Adipati, Nitipati, Upakulapati, Kulapati, Janadin. Okay? These are what you call high-level governance roles. They are professional roles. And they are citizenship roles. And they are there to serve the citizens. So what happened to them? Think carefully. And then think about the efficiency of the market. Do we have markets? Do we have good labor processes? Do we have good hierarchies? Are we happy about our organizational hierarchies? Think about it. Okay. Are we respecting our ecology? Are we respecting our all good, civic institutions? What happened to our families? What happened to our communities? What happened to epistemic institutions like schools, universities, hospitals, political parties? Are there political parties now? I don't see so. Good old days, there was solid political party. You don't have to have a good degree to be a good politician. You join the political party at the bottom and you learn and learn and learn and learn. Go through the hierarchy of the political party, you can become a wonderful politician. Because political party itself is a center of learning. So what happened to them? They gone off. There is no UNP, there is no Sri Lanka. There is no political parties, there are only Sandanas. And there is what you call corruptive coalitions. All corruptive coalitions. Corruptive and corrupting coalitions. No, that's what happened. Just think about it. So that's a problem of accountability. That's a problem of governance. That's a problem of regulation. So if you think about them in a broader sense. And now, to end my discussion, so I will give a small bit of advice and hints. How do you pursue an academic research career? So if you want to do academic research careers, the target jobs are university lecturer, university professor, and so on, okay, and research fellows. In the universities, there are research centers, you can be a research fellow if you don't like teaching. Okay. If you like teaching and research both, you can be a lecturer. If you don't like research, you can only teaching, then you can think about a teaching fellow. So in the British universities or European universities, we have three kinds of role. University lecturer. Lecturer is a researcher plus a teacher. Research fellow, only research. And a teaching fellow, only teaching. So you can target for these kind of jobs. And how do you get that? You can apply for a PhD or a research degree such as MRes and MPhil. So if you are planning to do a PhD, you can straight, if you have a first class in your undergraduate degree, you have honors undergraduate degree. If you have a first class or a second upper in your undergraduate degrees, in some universities like Glasgow, you can directly apply for a PhDs without a master. The master is not a compulsory condition for a PhD placement in our degree. For example, we give the priority for our first class and second uppers in our degree undergraduate. When we are giving our scholarships, most often our own undergraduate students get them because we know they are in a better condition after doing all our fourth year courses. So you can directly, but what is important is to have a good research proposal. And if you are not sure how to do a good research proposal, if you don't have a good research exposure, it could be a good idea to do an MRes or MPhil degree rather than an MBA or MSc degrees. So there are lots of MBAs and MSc degrees in European world. Now we offer MRes degree and MPhil degree in Glasgow. There are 800 odd students in our Master of Accounting degree, but they are not research degrees. So when you do that kind of research, you are not trained, you are not taught to do a good research. So these MBAs and MPhil degrees are called conversion degrees. They are called conversion degrees to give a fundamental basic understanding of accounting and management to those people who didn't have an accounting and management understanding in their undergraduate degrees. For example, think about a guy who does a chemistry degree. So you do a chemistry degree, got a wonderful degree, and then you go to a pharmaceutical company, work as a chemist with a white coat. Every day you go to the chemistry lab, you do your chemistry. You are a wonderful chemist. And then after 5-6 years time, because you are doing your job wonderfully, you become the head of the department of chemistry department. So as soon as you become the head of the chemistry department, you get a balance sheet to look at. You get a profit and loss account to look at. You get a budget to think about. You have to go to the management meetings. They talk about all financial numbers. And you have no clue because why? You are a chemist. And then the company will pay you and ask you to go and do MBA or MSc in something. Accounting or management or something like that. And that's what we call conversion degrees. And these conversion degrees do have a purpose. Okay? They are not directed to create academics. They are created, they are designed to convert non-managers into managers. Okay? So therefore, doing that kind of a degree would not help a lot if you are thinking about ultimately a PhD placement to become academic researcher. Much better to do a Master of Research or Master of Philosophy degree. And you need a good proposal. It is the research proposal that attracts the attention of prospective supervisor. Now, when you apply for a PhD, for example, in Glasgow, it goes to Angela, our administrative person, and then Angela will send it to George. He is the coordinator of PhD program currently, and George will look at the proposal and think about, okay, this idea seems to be maybe good for Chandana and Danture. All right, send it. Okay, and we look at the proposal before looking at anything and think about, oh, that's interesting, or that's rubbish. Okay. I don't want to supervise this. Either we say accept or not. If there's a fairly okay, it seems nice, and this student seems to be good, and still the proposal is not good. Okay? So then I might write a personal email to that particular candidate and say, I got your proposal, so, and can you improve it this in particular manner and send it back to me? So that can happen. It is the proposal that attracts the attention of a prospective supervisor. That's very, very critical thing. Looking at a proposal, we decide, should I take this student as a student, my PhD student? Because taking a PhD student is a commitment. If I make a wrong decision, that can suffer my life. If I get a bad student, I have to live with a bad student at least for 4 years. Ultimately, when he fails, I have to write a lot of reports to justify the university what happened here. Because it's a failure. Not only of the students, but partly of the supervisor as well. Okay? So therefore, all supervisors look at the proposal very carefully. So think about it. So when you are writing a good proposal, you have to have a very clear, justified research issue. A well-articulated literature review. Even though your research problem is not that solid, okay, if I can understand, you have a very good understanding, good appreciation of the relevant literature, then I will still be tempted. Oh, even though at this time, the proposal is not wonderful, this seems to be a good student. Then I might write back to you and say what? Look, why don't you do this way? I might help you. Okay? But that depends on the amount of reading you demonstrate. Okay? Amount of academic readings you have demonstrated in your proposal. So therefore, a well-articulated literature review is a very critical element to attract the attention and accept decision from a supervisor. And a methodology doesn't have to be very perfect, not tentative methodology. It's simply to say what kind of a data, evidences I am going to use, how I am going to address this particular thing. That's more than enough. Okay? And once you have a good proposal, you can contact possible supervisors individually through email or apply directly through the university application protocol. And other requirements, for example, IELTS. So those are the specific conditions. Okay? So taking a placement in Western universities as a PhD student or MRes student or MPhil student is not difficult. Okay? But you need these particular conditions. Okay, so that's that. So I have some questions. Clear? Thank you very much. So have I taken too much time? I don't know.
Chandana, just answer for the questions and we will wind up.
Okay, right, that's it, yeah. So there are a few questions I got. So I think Anil is asking, my colleague. Hi Anil, thank you very much. Nice to see you. I forgot your name earlier.
Okay, no worries, Chandana, please.
It's me, Anil. You may answer this question later at the end, I suppose. In Sri Lanka, it seems like construction and reconstruction of ideas by accounting professionals, and professionals are harboring the practice of corruption and so on. Yeah, so that's I partly agree to that, and that doesn't mean all accountants are bad, clear? And that is the problem I was talking about. Clear? The accountants in the last 30, 40 years, not all accountants, at least some accountants, forget about this, their citizenship role. Clear? And even in our education and everywhere, what happened? We lost this grip. Clear? We lost this grip from the top to bottom. Clear? So as a future accountants, I would expect all these young guys who are chartered accountants and are becoming chartered accountants, think about these things carefully. That is the future of your kids. This is the future of the wonderful country called Sri Lanka. So this is very, very important. So holding on to your stance, the accountant is a power. So you have to use that power so that ultimately you can be happy about that. For the last 30, 40 years, not only accounting, everywhere, earning for the sake of earning became a fundamental norm. Clear? That's the bad idea. Clear? And people lose their grip. Clear? With a very wonderful expectations. For example, with a very wonderful expectations, they are wonderful guys. Clear? For example, Nanda Malani and Sunil Aryatne sing a song. It's a wonderful song. I like it. Its message. But that says, Ane apitat rajek sitiyanam. Then I was considering, oh gosh, the idea is good, but the wording is utterly bad. Why do we need a king? In a democratic society. All over the world, we are getting rid of them. We are replacing the king with the public, the citizens. And while that, so we write the songs, Ane apitat rajek hitiyanam. But I don't blame for that because the intention of that song is wonderful because what it means is we have to replace whatever the guys we have to govern us. So that's the idea. But still within that idea, the wording is quite questionable. So same way you have to think about the accounting profession. What is the role of accounting profession? What is the role of accountants? That's the public interest. That's my message. Yes,
Chandana, one thing it's of course, the profession can be just directed towards engage in research for public interest. So again, I would like as of now, so it is highly institutionalized that the constructed knowledge, that is really dangerous for the society. How best we could engage in research to deconstruct these wrong embedded ideologies. So that is very much challenging and constraint for researchers, I think. Just few ideas for us to engage.
That's what I meant by normalized. Clear? These corruptive forces have been normalized. So overcoming these things are not easy. It takes time.
Yeah.
It can happen simultaneously at two different levels. Now, if I use, for example, Lacan move agonistics theories, I see this can happen at two different levels. One is at what we call national level intellectual movements, intellectuals. So there should be people at the very top level, university professors, university lecturers, and various other people writing in their Sinhalese papers, doing a paper, whatever it is, good papers for the public to understand, to teach them what do you mean by citizenship, what do you mean by accountancy. Okay, so that's a very important role. Okay. That's very important role at the top level. It doesn't have to be very academic. It has to be written in a particular form, so that you educate the public interest. And at the same time, at the very bottom level, much more important, while that is going on, each and every individual do have a wonderful thing to do. That is, for example, in this country, it's a very nice country to live here in England. Why? Nobody individually think about the country as a big thing. Nobody is trying to, help the country, help the nation. No, I'm not helping the nation. Yes, I am helping the nation indirectly. I don't get into the helping the nation. That's only the few politicians talk about. Then everybody else, forget it. So what do you mean by helping the nation is nation, country, and all those things is embedded into the notion of citizenship. So you should help the citizen. Because nation is a citizenship, collection of citizens. But every citizen doesn't come to me. I am a university lecturer. The citizen comes to me as a student. So when I see citizens in front of me as a student, respect them as a citizens, help them, support them as much as I. If I am a doctor, who I get the citizen? My role helping the nation is what? Help the patient. Okay. If you are an accountant, do your accounting job properly. If you are a government servant, do your government service job properly. Don't do anything else. And the politicians and the state and the government should provide the condition upon which each individual can perform their citizenship role. But everybody has a citizenship role. And the role of the state is to make sure that each individual has the condition that they can perform that job. As far as you can establish that, that's it. Okay? I can give you an example. A few months ago, I was working in the supermarket here with my daughter, not a few months, few years ago. Okay? And then a lady came. I have seen this lady very often, and every time I see her, she said hello. She talked to me. No, she talks to me. I didn't know her name. Okay? In these countries, everybody talks anyway. You know, and she talks to me. And one day I was walking with my daughter, and she came, hi Imesha, that's my daughter's name, no, and talked to us. Then I asked my daughter, hey, who is she? Then my daughter looks at me and said, you didn't know that? That's our MP. What? That is the MP. Majority of we don't know who is our MP. There's no need to know. Why? Do I have to go behind my MP to find a school place for my kid? No. MP doesn't have to do anything for me because she's not a doctor, she's not a lawyer, she's not an accountant, she's not a government servant. So we elect her, go to the parliament and talk. Okay. And then she has her own setup. She gets the information from various people in her own way, and then ask, changing the timetable, train timetable, asking the train to stop in Port Leather station. Those are the things she does. So that's the disconnection that we need. And that is the connection as well as the disconnection that we need. We have to make a lot of disconnections because we have created unnecessary connections. Accounting shifted from public interest, partly from more private interest, shareholder interest. And what was the reason? Is that allocation of resources or lack of resources or any other financial related influence? No, as I said, this movement from public interest to private interest is highly dominated by the Chicago school type economic thinking. The capture of policies, capture of professions by neoclassical economic jargon. This is what you call Chicago School of Economics, and there's another specific things. I can't talk about a lot, so how this happened, but it is neoliberal economics. Letting the neoliberal economics to capture original accountancy ideologies. Okay, Sanjeevani says, thank you very much. Thanks, Anthony. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Thanks. Thank you very much. So it is done. Okay, thank you very much, guys. That's me.
Yeah, thank you very much.